Hello there, I'm Steve from Mac84, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be, well, looking at what's in this box, which I hope is a very, very cool item. I picked this up on eBay and, well, here's the story about that. I was browsing my Twitter feed randomly and saw this. At first I thought it was a Photoshop or a joke by the lovely Dana Siberia, but then I thought, wait a second, this looks legit. What is this thing? I recognized the look of the app on the screenshot and jumped to eBay and found the listing. The seller actually had some pretty good photos of this thing, but it still begs the question, what is this thing? No Macintosh 512K ever shipped with dual floppy drives. The Macintosh SE was the first compact Mac with 2 floppy drives. So what was going on here? Was this an internal prototype? Was it some sort of mod someone did? Was this a bezel upgrade that a company sold back in the day? From the photos we could see the second floppy drive and it looks pretty great. On the back there's also a SCSI port which says at least this machine has an upgrade card inside, but what else is hiding in there? I consulted a few friends who were equally as stumped.
What the hell is that?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, hey, Steve. I didn't see you down there. Whoa. That thing is cursed.
Can I help you, Steve?
What the sh?
Without much to go on, there was only one way to find out what this thing was. So about $275 US later, this thing was on its way to me. Thankfully, the seller assured me it would be packed well. So I eagerly awaited for this box to arrive. Okay, so first things first, we have to unbox this thing. So let me cut it open and we'll see what's inside. Okay, so we got this out of the box and there's a bag. And hopefully there's a Macintosh inside and not a pile of bricks. Ooh, there's some padding inside. The top of it looks to be okay. Ho, 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 ho. Did you look at that? There's a cable. There's a cable hanging out of the back. What sweet hell is this? That wasn't in the photos. Look at this. What the hell is this? My goodness. I don't even know what to think at this point. We have a external cable just coming out the side here of a hole. But the first question is, yeah, this has 2 floppy disk drives. I can't tell if somebody would have machined this or what. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, let's look at the back here first to give us a clue of anything on this machine. But wait, there's something. Oh. Okay. We have a, is this a swivel stand? Or what? Or does this turn? Oh! Well, it's not swiveling really. It's just getting marks all over the desk. At one point it swiveled. Oh, that's that's not swiveling. Okay, so what's the deal behind this thing? That's why I bought it. I have no clue. There seems to be 2 disk drives, although this does not look prototypey to me. This looks like a hack job, but who knows? There is an external disk port on these Macs, so technically you could do this, I suppose, but why somebody would put in a second floppy drive is beyond me. But we're gonna open this thing up and figure out what the heck is going on here, because I am very curious, and if this thing isn't cursed, I don't know what is. All right, so I'm very curious to check what's inside of this computer, because it looks like this thing has a story to tell. Right off the bat, I want to look at the serial number, and it appears that it's a standard one. The sticker at least looks fairly normal. I guess that's it. Let's remove the screws from the back. So we have 5 here. There are 2 at the bottom. Oh, these are rusted. Oh boy. Oh, this is gonna be fun. I can tell. There we go. Time was not kind. They're very corroded, but the 3 silver ones go 2 at the top, 1 by the battery door. In this case, we actually have a SCSI port, which is a very common upgrade for these Macs. And yeah, let's try and get those out. I think these are going to give us some trouble, but we're going to try our darndest to get these screws out of there, because there's nowhere we're going to open up this machine without it. Oh, actually turned. Okay. Now we just tilt it back and smack the front. Well, there we go. All right. So I have all the screws taken out. Hopefully this machine will come open pretty easily, because obviously somebody's opened it before. And yeah, let's start from the bottom. I'm going to put my fingernails between the bottom and the case, and now we're going to do that same thing to the top. So the top is coming apart quite easily. And now the back is. Okay. Now the SCSI cable is routed to the back of this port here, so I might not be able to pull the whole back of the case off because that SCSI cable is usually pretty short. I'm going to try and take that off the back here. And the battery is still there. My goodness. Oh, that's going to be fun. But I'm going to move that SCSI connector inside of the case so we can move the back off of this thing and see what's inside. Oh, it's harder because of this like lazy Susan swivel thing that's somehow attached to this Mac. Oh, I hope it's not screwed in. Oh, this is not helpful at all. What is going on here? Of course, we have this cable that's not helping either. Oh, there we go. Okay. This is so weird. This is so weird. Okay, well, you can see the case has been lovingly scratched many times before. So, oh, that's a lot of dust. Yeah, this thing's been loved, but we have signatures! Rare! No, these signatures were stamped into the back of these machines. Every single one of them has signatures. We're going to put this to the side here ever so carefully. And look at the inside of the machine here. So, that's what we got. We have, my goodness, a very leaky battery. Let's take that out here. You can never be too careful with leaky batteries. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Oof. We're not going to add that to the collection. But there's a lot of green here. A ton of it. So that's sad. We do have the standard panel covering on that side. This does have a small reefer capacitor on it. By looking at the caps, none of them look terrible, although there is a little surprise in here, which we'll be looking at in a moment. So let me put this forward here. This is so weird. Okay, so not only do we have some sort of hacked up internal floppy, we have this doohickey, but someone put a little paper bottom on this thing. So, okay. And that seems to be adhered to the board. Cool. Let's try and get the board out, because I want to take a good look at this thing. How does one do this? I just literally took a few of these machines apart with these similar additions that I'm looking at inside of this thing, so this might take a second. All right, so this isn't a Mac prototype by the looks of it at all, but it's still an interesting Mac. And is that worth what I paid for it? Only if you watch the entire video and click those ads. No, wait, I think that's against YouTube's terms of service. I can't tell people to click the ads. Oh, goodness. Okay, so first we're going to have to unplug these cables here. Now, there's more cables than usual, but there's one internal floppy cable, which I can't seem to remove. Oh, that's not the floppy cable. That's the SCSI cable. That explains why. The floppy cable is wedged over here, so let's undo that. And then we have the main cord that goes from the analog board to the logic board, which we've now unplugged. Okay, so now this board should move a little bit more. There we go. And neither is this upgrade board. I might have to push this down. I'm going to have to push this whole upgrade board down to have it. Oh, there's a lot of corrosion in there. Oh, that's lovely. I smell a live stream of fixing this thing. Okay. I think we've cleared the worst of it, maybe. Or not. This is a first. This is a first. My goodness. Somebody really loved this Mac. And now this cable is catching. Oh, God. All right, so we're going to have to move this down, unplug this cable with the big ferret thingamajig on it. How is this? They must have routed this cable through before they put the board in, because I don't see of a good way to get this board out with this big cable in the way. Well, we're going to try. That's all we could do. Is try. Maybe if I bend it back slightly. There we go. I don't want to damage anything. I know I could have just wiggled the sides and moved the board out from the back, but now it's a bit easier to do that. There we go. Okay. My goodness. Okay, so I got the logic board out, and it's quite interesting. You ready to see it? All right. So here it is. It's your standard Mac 512K logic board with some upgrades done to it. First off, this huge board here is added on. You could probably see the levels here if I hold it at an angle. Hopefully I'll get some close-up pictures in here later. But yeah, so this is a big board, sort of like almost an L shape. Then there's another board here, which attaches to the ROMs. So this is a Dove Computer Corporation Mac Snap. Has a copyright date of 85 here, and then it says 88 here. This, I assume, is RAM. I have seen one of these boards before, but it didn't have all these chips present. So this is probably full of memory. And then this board here replaces the ROMs that were socketed with probably Mac Plus ROMs, and that's because it also has a SCSI header here. So that header connects to this cable, which pops out the back of the computer through where the battery compartment would be, and allows you to plug in a SCSI device to it, like an external hard drive. Now what's interesting here is there are two boards, so you have, I assume this connects to what it has to connect to for memory functions, and then this is to control the ROM and the SCSI. There is some corrosion here. It doesn't look too terrible, but I'm going to want to clean that up before we try and power that on. So while this wasn't a prototype, it's still a very interesting upgrade to this machine. And the way they did those floppy drives is still making me scratch my head. So let's take a look at the floppy drives. I want to try and see how they did this and try and explain it. So this cage here was originally designed for the Macintosh 128K when there was a 400K drive, which was actually bigger than one of the drives in here. So that was a double the size of one of these drives. So when they switched over to the 512K and later the Plus, they kept this around the same size, meaning that this person figured out, hey, I could probably shove another floppy drive in there and make it internal into the machine. Now, why would you want to do that? I have no clue. You could have just plugged one in externally. Maybe they didn't have the space for it. Maybe they didn't want someone taking the extra drive. Maybe they always wanted it or they always needed it. I have no idea. I'm going to try and message the seller to see if they have any history about this item because I'm very curious. But anyway, that's how they were able to fit 2 floppy drives in here, and it would be supported by the ROM because the Macintosh, you could always plug in a second floppy drive to it, at least on these models. But I think the unique thing here is, of course, the cutout for the floppy drives, because anybody could take a hacksaw and try and do this, but this looks like it's pretty darn well done. I mean, you have a cutout here that feels pretty smooth. Someone must have had to measure this very carefully and take the faceplate off of here and, you know, just do a very careful job. It really does look like it's almost factory. I mean, yeah, it looks different from the main floppy drive. You don't have the recessed area here and that smooth bezel or anything like that, but it's pretty darn close. And you know what? For someone doing this in their basement or their workshop, or maybe this was a send-away thing, but I would doubt it. Although if you have any information about a machine that looks similar to this, if you've seen one before, let me know in the comment section. But I would assume that somebody just did this just for fun, and my hat goes off to them. The more I think about it, the more this mod makes sense. The Macintosh 128K and 512K models shipped with a single-sided 400K floppy drive. Since there was no internal hard drive, this forced you to always boot off of one floppy disk. To run an application or a game, you'd have to insert another disk. This is where a second drive came in very handy. While some application disks had a minimum system folder on the disk, you often had to swap disks endlessly so the computer could load portions of the application, or the Macintosh operating system, into RAM. And although things got a bit better with the 512K, this was an absolute chore on the 128K model. But these drives are too compact to be the older 400K drives. This Mac is using newer, double-sided 800K disk drives like those found in the Mac 512Ke or the Mac Plus. The upgrade board installed on this Mac uses Mac Plus ROMs in place of the old 512K ROMs. This allows the Mac to use those newer disk drives without a problem. So essentially this is a souped up Mac Plus with an additional disk drive built right in. Pretty cool, huh? But this will be fun to like take to VCF East or something like that and just have it up and running and people be like, huh? And I think I could maybe, instead of having this cable go to like the back here, I could probably solder something fancy and just have it all internal without the need for a bulky cable like that. Hopefully, I don't know. Just make this up as I go. All right, so logic board removed. This, I'm gonna have to reseat. Well, that's the interesting thing about this Dove board. There are these little screws here, and it's sandwiching itself. It's not touching the CPU, thankfully, but all these memory controller chips, this is like snapped right on the top of them. So if there's a problem with this, that's going to be a pain in the butt. But I'm just going to reseat the ROMs. This looks like, nope, I can't even do that because this card is on top of that. Well, this is going to be fun. Let me just get some isopropyl alcohol. There's some corrosion here. I just want to clean that a little bit. Okay, so this board also has a piece of paper that's with the silverfish. There's a bug on here. Ugh. I guess I could use this screw thing to, there you go, buddy. Where did you come from? Whoa, it escaped. This thing is cursed and infested. I should have brought this thing outside and hosed it out first. What other friends are hiding in there, huh? Huh? Anybody else home? Okay, so let's try and clean this thing. I just have some isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush. And I know you can't see this, I apologize, but there's not too much to see. There was just some light corrosion on the cable that connected the external SCSI port here. So anything that was maybe there that shouldn't be, hopefully we could get out of there. The traces by that look okay just to the naked eye. All right, the next thing I want to do is reseat these chips here. These are the ROMs that are onto this Mac Snap board. I don't think I could get this board off easily, so I think the best thing I could do is reseat these ROMs, and when we power it up, see if that fixes anything. If we're still getting some sort of messed up thing here, then I think we're going to have to go further. But actually, looking at this, between the layers here, I can make out that this board is not seated at all. The pins are touching kind of, but it's not seated. So I'm actually going to just push this down. There we go. And now that's actually seated properly. But while we're in here, I'm just going to, there's some dust and stuff on here. I want to make sure nothing is touching, but yeah, this is the high ROM and this is the low ROM, and yeah, those weren't actually seated. Let's see if I could, I'm not even going to bother to do that actually. Okay, now they're seated a bit better. This memory module, or whatever this upgrade actually does, I'm assuming it's memory because of all the chips, actually has 3 points with little circles. And that actually says push, push, and push. 1, 2, and 3. So you're supposed to do a 3-fingered salute here. And push down to make sure that those ICs or whatever this is connecting to do its job is actually connected. And it appears to be pretty snugly connected, hopefully. And I'm ready to plug this thing up and see what happens. Let's put the logic board back in here. In all its cursed glory. Hopefully no more bugs fall out of this thing. Okay, the logic board is back in place, or as best it can be. Going to plug the main cord from the analog board to the logic board here. Going to plug in one of the floppy drives. Well, actually, let me do the other one first. This is so weird. There we go. And that could stay there. And this is going to plug into there. Okay. This will plug in here. This is so weird. Okay. Oh, that's strange. Now we do have the cable that does allow SCSI on this, so we could plug that back in even if we don't put the case back on. We can probably boot this thing from something like a blue SCSI, maybe. Yeah, none of those, yeah, there's a little bit of crap on this that a lot of the exposed metal, like the ports and stuff, have some corrosion on it. I don't know where this thing was stored, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to spray some contact cleaner and just reseat this a few times onto that board, just in hopes of making a good connection there. Okay. Now, while I'd love to use the dual floppy disk drives in this unique system, unfortunately, those drives will need servicing. I can hardly insert the disks into the drive, let alone be sure those disk drives will work. That's because the lubrication used on those drives to help the disks go in and out has all been dried up. And so those disk drives will need to take apart and need to have them serviced before we can even get them working. However, we can still boot up this machine thanks to that fancy little external SCSI port. I do have a blue SCSI here. This is the DB25 version. We may need external power, so I have a USB cable here I'll be plugging into a battery bank, and we'll see if we get this thing working. Okay, so we're going to plug the blue SCSI into that. And we're going to have to probably plug this into a battery bank because I don't believe this gets termination power, which we'll need to power the blue SCSI. So let's plug that in. We got our little lights, which is good. And now the moment of truth. We're going to plug this in, and hopefully it doesn't explode. Oh, that was it's a kind of a scary noise it make. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I can't see the screen here. Oh, there we go. We got a screen. So we don't have a SAD Mac. Reseating that must have helped. Okay, we got a question mark. It is trying to seek from those drives. It does not like what it sees. If it thinks there's a disk in there, we might have to unplug those drives. Yeah, I think it's going to be stuck here. Yeah, I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to unplug the floppy drives here. So it's just going to hopefully boot from the SCSI. Okay, so now we're going to try it with just the blue SCSI. I've disconnected the floppy drives here because I think that may be causing a problem with the machine thinking there are disks inserted. So we're going to try that again. Nice loud chime. I'm going to refer to my little monitor here because I can't really see what's on the screen without bending over. But it looks like we have a gray screen, and hopefully it will try and boot off of our little blue SCSI here. Yeah, we still have that question mark, huh? Yeah, I don't know if there's more corrosion on that board or if it's not making a good connection or what's going on. Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to get it to be booted off of a SCSI device today. So let's try something else. So I've got my floppy MU here. Let's plug that into one of the floppy disk drive ports so we could at least boot up the machine. Okay, so I have the floppy MU plugged in here. I don't think it's getting enough voltage. Yeah, that ain't right. Okay, well that ain't good. Now the floppy drives were getting voltage because they were trying to be read and they were making noises at least, but the floppy MU didn't seem to get the voltage it needed, or it was being problematic for whatever reason. Which makes me think I want to check the voltage that is being sent out by the analog board. And we could do that, thankfully, by using this handy little guide. This screenshot here was from a video by Bruce of Brankus Creations. I'll put the link in the video description and a little title card in the corner. But essentially, we can probe the floppy drive port, so you could even test the voltage of a machine without even opening it up. And this will let you know if the machine is operating within spec. Okay, so let's see what the voltage is here. Okay, 11.51, which is a little bit low. We want 11.9 or 12.8, somewhere in that range. So I'm going to turn that off again because I don't like unplugging things while I'm doing things. And now we're going to try pin 6, which should be 5 volts. And we're getting lower than that. We're getting 4.0, which should be between 4.8 and 5.12. And just for completion's sake here, let's test the 12 volts, the negative 12 volts that is. And we are getting 12.6, which is within range. So, okay. So, unfortunately, that means there's something a little bit screwy with the analog board. Now, either those upgrade boards are drawing a bit more power. There's also a little potentiometer, I believe, on the analog board that we could adjust, and Bruce covers that in his video. But I also want to take a look at the capacitors at a better level, maybe under the microscope, see if anything has leaked, and those reefer caps definitely need to be replaced. Now what I'm about to do is adjust the voltages on the analog board. Again, Bruce did a great video about this. You can check the link in the video description. You have to be very careful with this, but hopefully this adjustment will allow us to get the machine booted up from a SCSI device. Or not. It doesn't hurt to try. All right, so we're going to plug this in. I'm going to turn it on. And I don't know which way I'm supposed to turn, but it's going down. So I want this to be like 4.85. Well, I turned it all the way it's supposed to go, and it's only at 4.4. So I don't think that's going to solve it, unfortunately. I think it's too far out of spec, unfortunately, for us to just make that simple adjustment and make this problem go away. Because the multimeter was telling us it was still too low of a voltage. It's supposed to be much closer to 5 volts, and we didn't even get close to that. Well, unfortunately, it seems that we have a problem. Although the machine tries to boot up, the analog board is too out of spec for it to supply enough power to the floppy drives or external SCSI devices to make this machine function properly. The analog board will need some attention. It'll need a recap. We'll also have to replace those refit capacitors, and that's a project for another day. However, I am so surprised that this thing actually showed any signs of life beyond a sad Mac. I was very curious to see what was inside of this machine and the story behind the dual floppy drives here. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the genius that modded this Mac. The eBay seller told me they were not the original owner. However, they did tell me that they got this machine from a couple who ran a business, so it's safe to assume that this Mac was heavily used. Whoever did this, it's clear that they modded this Mac with a lot of love. The cutout for the second floppy drive is just so very clean. Even looking at the back, it's hard to find any chips or mistakes. Sure, if you look very, very closely, you'll see that it's not perfect, but it really intrigued a lot of us vintage Apple fans. While I'm not a huge fan of the cutout on the side of the machine, I do want to get this machine fully restored and up and running again. At the end of the day, it looks like this was a very loving mod done by somebody to get more power out of their Mac, especially by the upgrades that are on this logic board. If you like more cursed Macintosh shenanigans, please consider subscribing to the channel. You could also follow me on Twitter or Instagram. My handle is Mac84TV. And you could also support me on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get behind-the-scenes extras and exclusive access to other content that you can't get anywhere else. But that's about it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you right here next time on Mac84.